Hi, and welcome to the Sustainability Speaker Series for the federal community. I'm Michelle Hawkins, Director for Strategic Initiatives in the Office of the Federal Chief Sustainability Officer in the White House Council on Environmental Quality. And I am absolutely thrilled to be joining you today. We're excited to have Bill Nye with us. And I want to take a moment to say thank you to my fellow federal employees for taking time out of your busy schedules to learn more about our federal sustainability plan and your critical role in helping us shift to sustainable and resilient operations. I also want to take a moment to say hello and welcome to our younger viewers. We're really excited to have you here today. We're excited about what you're going to learn, and we are looking forward to seeing all the things that you're going to do now and in the future to protect our planet. So first, I'm going to cover a few housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording, as well as information about future events, can be found on our website, sustainability.gov. We are not going to be using the raise hand feature. However, we did get your questions that came in during the registration process, and we use those questions to inform our discussion today. So again, thank you for being here with us. And now I'm going to hand it over to the Federal Chief Sustainability Officer, Andrew Mayock.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you for everything you've done to make today possible. And our most recent speaker series 2 with Catherine Hayhoe. Hope we have a number of returning guests and colleagues today. We are very excited, as Michelle noted, to welcome Bill Nye today. The comments that we received, the emails that we received that Michelle was just sharing with Bill that have said, big thanks to Bill for all he's done his whole career, how inspiring he's been to a number of individuals and their career and what they've done and their children. And we're also, speaking of children, we're very excited to have children in the audience today and bring your child to a work day. Couldn't have a better setting and a better guest to do what we're seeking today, which is to, again, educate, inspire, and collaborate through this medium. Before handing it over to Bill and welcoming Bill, we wanted to spend a quick couple minutes on the federal sustainability plan and our shared work as federal employees. And again, doing what we're seeking to do through this moment is to meet the climate challenge head on in high impact, meaningful ways together. And so a few slides I would share before we start the conversation with Bill that will tee up the work that we're in and provide context to the conversation that we're having today. So a few quick slides. One is to who we are. We reside in the White House, and we have been tasked by the president to go deliver on federal sustainability and revive federal sustainability and deliver on how we use the power of the federal footprint to organize ourselves to meet this urgent climate moment. We work closely with our colleagues throughout the executive office of the president and throughout the federal government to do that.
Andrew, you've got some things blocking the view on the slide.
Oh, I forgot our friendly. Thank you.
Is that redacting?
This is some White House security measures that make even Zooms more fun in this pandemic world, but still bring us together. So a couple slides here about the federal sustainability plan. I mean, the short story here is that through President Biden's leadership, he tasked us to go deliver on how we turn federal operations into net zero emissions by 2050. And so we have a number of pillars to that plan, including moving all of our consumption, we're the largest electricity consumer in the United States, the federal government is, and move that to 100% carbon-free electricity no later than 2030. We also have the largest fleet, not only in the United States, but in the world, of 650,000 vehicles. And our task is to turn them into all zero emission vehicles with the key dates at 2027 and 2035, and a number of other pieces to the plan and the work, including electrifying our buildings, integrating environmental justice in the work that we do, leveraging partnerships as we go do that to bring more action to the climate fight here. Primary goal is doing what we're doing today, which is bring our federal colleagues together to foster a real culture of sustainability throughout the federal government as a whole. I hope you've seen, if you haven't seen, we point you to this letter from President Biden to all federal employees when we launched the federal sustainability plan in December of 2021, making sure and inviting everybody to play their role as we do this work together. And today, as we turn to our conversation with Bill Nye, the big idea of taking time out on at least a quarterly basis is to hear what we're definitely hear today, dynamic and thought-provoking leaders and innovators to get deeper in sustainability and climate literacy as a federal family, and to highlight the good and great work that's happening throughout government on federal sustainability. We point you to, on this last slide, the Federal Sustainability Plan, which you can find at sustainability.gov, a highly readable report. You can show your kids the high level and the photos and the graphs that we have in that plan about where we are and where we're going as a federal family. And the last thing I would say on that front is progress that we've made just since the last meeting, the last speaker series event that we had in January, is that our colleagues at the Department of Defense and the General Services Administration have come out with a request for information and are following up with further action on how we go procure carbon-free electricity and how we go meet that 2030 demand. And then we're working closely with all agencies that have vehicles in the federal fleet to put in the charging infrastructure that's necessary and to purchase the zero emission vehicles that are part of that ramp up to full electrification, and making serious progress across all agencies on that front as we're executing in the plan. So thanks for the opportunity to hear a little bit about the plan. Now we'll go to the main event and what we're all excited about, being here today with Bill Nye. And a man who needs no introduction, so I won't go through a long bio list, but I'll just welcome Bill and ask Bill as we kick off here, tell us about this moment that you're in. You're clearly on the front lines. You were on the front lines in the South Lawn with the president not that long ago. And you're out there every day, today in Ohio, sharing your knowledge and inspiring others to act. And so hearing in your own words and your own background about, where we are in this moment and what we need to do to go deliver would be a great way to kick this off. Thanks again, Bill.
No, it is I who must thank you. Good to see everyone. Thanks for tuning in the middle of the day and so on, or in the morning if you're out west. Everybody, I'm so old. How old are you? I'm so old. I was at the World's Fair in New York, New York. The town's so nice, they named it twice in 1964. And the United Nations had a scoreboard, a totalizer, a tote board, depicting the estimated number of people on Earth in 1964. And it had just changed a few days before my family arrived. It had just changed to 3 billion. We missed it changing from 2,999,999,999 people to 3 billion people. Well, if you go on a world population website like the US Census Bureau right now, you'll find it's almost 8 billion. So in my lifetime, it's almost triple. It will triple in my lifetime, triple. And that's the deal, everybody. The atmosphere, if you were to get in a car and drive any car that could somehow drive straight up. Wait, there is no such car. But if you could get in a car and drive straight up, you'd be in outer space in an hour. It's barely 60 miles away, 100 kilometers away. And so that's it, everybody. There's 8 billion of us breathing and burning the atmosphere that is just barely thick enough to see in pictures from the International Space Station. And so what we have done by accident, we humans, by accident, is put extra carbon dioxide in the air. And carbon dioxide and a couple other gases have this remarkable property where visible light, the light that we can see, goes right past these molecules. After it hits the ground, its energy spreads out to a longer wavelength, the infrared. Infra is Latin for below red. And then these molecules hold that energy in. It's amazing. It's physics, it's science. And so we've accidentally got the world warmer faster than it's ever happened in history, with the exception perhaps of certain asteroid impacts for a few moments. But that's a whole nother thing. In other words, we're making the world warmer faster by accident. And so what has happened, everybody? Like when I was a kid, we would think of ourselves and cities or your house, whether could be a farmhouse, it doesn't have to be in a city. Think of your house as this is human environment. And then out beyond that was nature. And that somehow nature was separate from us. But what we have discovered in the last couple decades, last 20 years or so, is no, we are part of nature. It's all one thing. Whatever goes on out there goes on with us. Whatever we do at home ends up affecting the whole world. So humans are now in charge of this whole planet. We didn't want to be, that wasn't our thing, but now we are running the show. So we've got to protect the environment around us to protect ourselves. We can't be healthy if the environment isn't healthy. Now, this all may sound very highfalutin and groovy and back to nature and so on, but I'm a mechanical engineer. I became a mechanical engineer because I like stuff. I like things. I like objects. My friends call me shiny object man because I like airplanes and bicycles and stuff like that. And so what we have now are what I will call technical challenges, science challenges to take care of the environment so we can take care of ourselves. And the three things that I like to talk about are clean water, reliable, renewably produced electricity, and then access to global information, to what we generally call the internet right now. If we had those three things for everybody in the world, everybody would be healthy. And then if everybody's healthy, generally there'd be just everybody would get along better and we would take care of the environment, we take care of ourselves. So the big thing for us right now is electricity. You and I are on this call because of our ability to move electricity around and do all these extraordinary things with it, where we make these digital codes, mathematical codes using off, on, off, on, off, digital information. And that's enabling us to have this phone call right now. It also enables you to make toast in the morning or run an electric vehicle, electric car, electric truck, electric train. And so the thing about electricity, there's a couple things. First of all, the thing that makes the car go or the train go is an electric motor, and electric motors are very efficient. Most electric motors are way over 90% efficient. A gas-powered car, and look, I grew up in gas-powered cars, people. I owned gas-powered cars for decades, but a gas-powered car is barely 30% efficient. In other words, you take all the energy in the gasoline or diesel fuel, and then have a chemist or somebody figure out how much energy is theoretically possible to get out of that gallon or liter of gasoline. And then how far does the car go on that? It's not even 30% for most cars. Not even a third of the energy that's in the gasoline gets used to make the car go. And so this is a big reason we want to change to electric vehicles. Then the other problem is gas-powered cars and trucks and everything, trains, produce all this carbon dioxide. When you take these ancient swamps that have dried out and turned to coal or oil and gas because of bacteria eating the ancient plants, and you burn it, that carbon that was in the trees goes up in the atmosphere, and that's what's keeping the world warmer, making the world warmer faster than ever. So here's the other thing about electric vehicles. Not only are they more efficient, but the vehicle doesn't know where the electricity is coming from. You can talk to an electric car. It won't tell you where the electricity is coming from. It could be coming from a wind turbine or turbine, could be coming from solar panels like I have on the roof of my house. It could be coming from a nuclear power plant or an oil and gas fired power plant where we use heat to make something spin and then make a generator spin and make electricity. Anyway, by changing to electric vehicles, we will not have this carbon going up in the air if the supplies of the electricity are renewable. So part of the plan that Andrew and everybody are talking about today is to change to use the federal government, which is the biggest user of this energy, to get the federal government to lead the way in changing to these renewable sources of electricity. Now, you, the young people out there, and everybody watching, there's a couple problems we have to solve. And I want you to solve these problems. The first one is we have to move the electricity around. We have to send it to people's houses and farms and from power plants or from your roof or from anywhere. And this means changing the way we move electricity around. Traditionally, we moved it around from a central power plant out like a spider web to everybody's house and factory and farm, whatever you're going to use the electricity for. But we're going to have to change that so that the electricity is made all over the place, on everybody's roof, wind turbines, out in open areas, offshore, in the on the coasts, and then move that electricity from there to everybody. And then the other cool idea, which people are just starting to mess around with, is putting electricity in the car, driving around. Then when you park the car, take that electricity and put it in the car, go home. And then when you need electricity in your house, you take it out of the car into your house. And this is the so-called vehicle to grid. Grid is the electrical grid, all the wires running all over the place. Vehicle to grid, grid to vehicle. Ooh, it's a cool idea, but it's complicated. It's technical. And it's technical in that we need electrical engineers and mechanical engineers to design some things. But we also need people to pass laws to enable this to happen. And we need citizens to realize it's a good idea and vote for things that will enable all this to happen. We have to work the problem from every direction. And so you all, everybody watching, this is such an exciting time. This is such an exciting time in human history. We have this chance to make these huge sweeping changes so that the world is just better and cleaner and people are better off in new and exciting ways. I'm serious. And it's the young people that are going to get this done. Everybody. I like to remind people that my grandfather, by the way, all of my grandparents were born in the 19th century. They were all born in the 1800s. They didn't see an electric vehicle. They didn't see a car. They didn't see a car until much later in their lives. And so when they were born, no one knew what relativity was. Now your mobile phone depends on both special and general relativity. We all take it for granted now. But my grandfather was in World War I, and he rode a horse. He rode a horse around in battle. Like, wow. And he lived through it, and that's why I'm here, or that's one of the reasons I'm here. But 25 years later, when World War II was starting, nobody was riding a horse. Everything had changed in just 25 years. All transportation had been revolutionized. So let's go, you all. Let's get this done. This is exciting. It's going to be fun. Back to you, Andrew.
It is exciting, Bill. And you're picking up on that. It is an exciting time to be here in government when we're seeing our colleagues on the phone here and throughout the administration doing exactly what you mentioned. When we talk about vehicle to grid and building to grid, not only are we trying to and executing on the infrastructure and the vehicles, bringing them into the federal fleet, but our frontline federal colleagues here are also delivering on that next step. is how do you hold that energy in the car, hold it in the building, and send it back to the grid when it's most needed. So it's great to see and hear about that and connect that to the plan itself. As a person who loves the shiny objects that you mentioned, and as a mechanical engineer, in addition to vehicles, as we think about solutions and that change that you just referenced, like the amount of change that can happen in a short period, and as our boss Joe Biden likes to say, is that this is the decade of action. The 2020s is when we're going to deliver on this, and this is the start of the big push. In addition to vehicles and the transformation and revolution that's happening there, what other shiny objects are you looking at and seeing that are going to help us through this clean energy transition and help us address this moment? What are you excited about?
Big problem, Andrew, thanks for asking. The other big problem, technical problem with electricity, you guys, is storing it. We all know batteries, I think, and you've charged up your phone or your computer or what have you. You got to charge up the battery, or you bought batteries and put them in your lights or your video games, what have you, and the batteries get thrown away a lot. We have to come up with new types of batteries, and people really are working hard on this. And what we would do is use the fancy minerals and chemistry to make batteries for small things like this and cars. And then we would have new kinds of batteries, generally based on carbon, the same element that is in charcoal and you and me, and in carbon dioxide, that same element. We'd use batteries made largely with that element, that chemical. And then those batteries would not be as efficient. It would take bigger carbon batteries to store the same amount of electricity as you can store in the fancy schmancy lithium, gallium, germanium batteries and that. But that's all right. We'd use those in the basement of buildings. We'd use those at factories, hospitals, and then use the fancy chemicals for the more compact batteries. So transmitting the electricity and storing it, these are the two huge problems. And then everybody, come on, we want clean water for everyone. We want our farming, our agriculture to be as efficient as possible without contaminating rivers and streams, waterways. What we're doing right now, everybody, often by accident, is putting on too much fertilizer, and the fertilizer ends up in rivers and streams. But you need the fertilizer, then how do you apply it? And how do you keep it in place while the plants use it without, and so it's complicated. But it's the kind of problem that we can solve. We can do this, everybody. Let's invest. And it's this idea that we are all in this together. There's nobody, you're not going to meet anybody who's not from the earth, okay? People talk about, chatting it up with the aliens. You might watch some science fiction stories where they're talking to people from other worlds, but that is not actually happening. Everybody is here on Earth. And every single thing each and every one of us does affects everybody in the whole world because we all share the air. There's only one atmosphere. And everything we do that affects the atmosphere affects everybody in the world. And then another thing that's so exciting for me. Now, look, you guys, I was born in the United States. All right. My parents were veterans of the military. I don't know any better. I'm patriotic. I can't help it. I was born here. And so I want the US to be the leader in the world with all this. Not just because we always have been the leader, but because it's the home team. And somehow say what you will about the people that wrote the Constitution. People argue about whether they were really good guys or what have you, but they had a heck of an idea. And you look around, everything is derived from this remarkable idea that we're going to have a government without a king or a queen. Like no one's really tried that before, apparently. And so now the US system of government has become a model for governments around the world. And it's leadership. It's inherently leadership because built in is change. built in is change, and that's what science is, everybody. When I was young, Pluto was a planet, just like all the other planets. And you can argue about whether or not, but when you get up close to Pluto, you go, well, it's not quite like the other planets. We'll give it a different name. And we have, it's a dwarf planet. So I like to call it a Plutoid. But then when I was a kid, dinosaurs didn't have feathers, ancient dinosaurs. But people have studied fossils really carefully using modern microscopes and techniques, x-rays and stuff, and they figured out that ancient dinosaurs, probably all of them had feathers. And I mention this because science changes. That's what's built in. Science changes. And the reason the US government has lasted this long is because change is built in. In other words, the government is like science in that it's changing and improving and working its way to the so-called more perfect union. And I like to remind people, Andrew, before I hand it back to you, if you look at the US Constitution, which is available in paperback, that's a joke. It is available in paperback. You go to Article 1, which is the job of Congress. Article 1 is all about Congress. Section 8, Clause 8 refers to the progress of science and useful arts. The word science is in the Constitution, people. The guys who wrote it, influenced by the women around them, the people who wrote the Constitution, realized the value of science to the economy, to competing on the world stage, to having a good military, and just being healthy for success. The progress of science and useful arts. And to me, useful arts is 18th century phrase for engineering, using science to make things, solve problems. And so I am excited about the future because, in part, because I was born here and I'm a proud US citizen. Back to you.
Thanks, Bill. And that's a great point in that in the uniqueness of our country and the patriots that surround us here today, whether they were born here or they came here from other shores, what a dynamic.
My people were immigrants. Okay.
Yeah.
All were.
It's all sort of set in, it starts in the Constitution and that has created all that's around us and creates the opportunity, as you're pointing out, to make the change that we need to make now and deliver on. One of the exchanges that we had in the lead up to this conversation, which I thought was really powerful, appreciating the change agents that are with us today, the children of Bring Your Children to Work Day. You had a special message and call to action for them and how they engage their parents. I'd love you to refer back to that and to give them the challenge that you want to give them.
So people say to me, Bill Nye, science guy, what can I do about climate change? How can I affect change? Well, of course, everybody, do your best to leave the world around you better than you found it. The classic example right now is recycle the plastic, recycle your paper. And if there isn't a recycling program where you live, find out why and see if you can influence those companies or your local government to establish recycling. Now, recycling is not going to solve the world's problems, but it's something that you'll find when you do something, when you take some action, you feel better. And I guarantee you're making the world a little better. Then the second thing, which I think Andrew is referring to, if you're a kid, make sure your parents vote. Make sure they vote and do all you can, my young friends, to influence your parents so that they take the environment into account when they vote. So they think about the environment and climate change and our future. And so you guys, young people, you can get your parents to do a huge, significant thing for the environment if you can get them to vote with the environment in mind. Is that what you were looking for, Andrew?
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, you had a strong message. Exactly that. Stay after your parents. You've got a role to play here.
Don't let up on your parents. Sorry.
Yeah. And that's also one of the.
But Don't let up.
inspiring things that we're seeing these days is the youth movement around climate, how powerful, how pervasive, how global, how effective it is. So great to hear more about that. One of the things, and these are all questions that came into us that we're sharing when bringing to you, Bill. When we one of the common themes these days, and I think you're probably the personification of this, is in with the clear and present danger that we see climate affecting us, whether it's the forest fires in New Mexico of today and this week, and the drought that continues to affect the West, including the governor of California coming out yesterday with very stringent drought measures. There's a definite gloom and negativity around this, and balancing hope and action with the negativity and the bad news and the bad effects that we're feeling is a careful balance. I want to hear, like I said, I think personified hope and action is happening here through just talking to you, Bill. And it's what we hope to do today is inspire and to move out and to lean in further. But how do you answer that question in your own words and as you come across it with your audiences and your friends and your family?
Okay, people, you have to be optimistic. And for young people who might not know that word, it means you have to feel that the future is going to be better. That's what optimism is. Because if you're not optimistic, you're not going to get anything done. If you don't think you can make the future better, then you won't. Okay, you probably have a sports team that you like, right? What if the sports team, the coach, or any of the players said, "Well, we're pretty sure we're going to lose tonight. Yeah, we're probably going to lose this game." Yeah. Would you go to the game? Would you buy a ticket? No, you go because you want your team to do well. You believe we all do, and reasonably, you believe your team can win. And by the way, whether it's baseball, football, soccer, lacrosse, the ball is round. Anything can happen. Okay, and if so, that's why we play. Part of the reason we play sports is that optimism, that belief that we can win. So you guys, another thing. All right. Both of my parents were in World War II, both of them. And at that time, everybody was scared. People were afraid. There was this war going on in both Europe and Asia at the same time. And it was like the kind of government that we have here in the States and most of the Western world versus this other idea. Very much like having a single person running the whole show. And it was desperate. People were terrified. But what they did is they all got together and won the war. At that time, the music, all these posters, the stamps on letters, the leadership from government speakers, industry, factories, everybody got together and resolve this problem in 5 years. So when I think about them, I think about that time, I go, let's go, people. We can do this. Come on. And the other thing that bugs me, can I just tell you what bugs me?
Please.
Hand wringing. The problem is too big. Okay, let's go. Let's get her done. Well, the electrical grid isn't ready to have electric vehicles everywhere. Well, let's fix the grid. Okay, let's go. And then, those other countries in Asia, they're still burning coal. So that week should, they're not playing fair. Okay, let's be leaders. Quit. Let's go. Come on. The U.S. is the leader. We can do this, you all. And let's change our manufacturing. Let's improve our electrical grid. Let's find new ways to get electricity moved around, and let's change all our transportation, everybody, is huge. It's about half of the energy we use. If we can make transportation 5 times as efficient as it is now, it would be a huge thing for the climate, for our health, and for our economy and world leadership. It's win-win-win. So I keep bringing it up because it's part of the president's plan for a better future.
Yeah, and I can faithfully say, Bill, building on that the hand wringing and the whataboutism that you just raised is something I see very little of in our work. I'm 15 plus years a Fed now and served in 3 different administrations, and the inspiration and the energy around executing on this mission, whether it's electrifying those vehicles, electrifying the buildings, moving our electricity consumption to 100% carbon free. What I see and what we see around the federal government is not colleagues who say, I can't do that, that's hard. Is colleagues are saying, that's hard and we're gonna do it. So it's super inspiring to show up to work every day to work with those colleagues to go deliver on that. And I think very much of the same energy that you're just sharing with us. I've got one last question for you before any final remarks, and it's a bit of a wild card. It comes from one of our more junior members in the audience, and it's a fun one. But it goes: if you could travel to any year in a time machine, what year would you choose and why?
I think I'd go to like 2070. Like 50 years from now. I'd like to see the changes that have been made 50 years from now. That's when people predict the world's population will start to go down, where enough people in the world have enough that everybody will be more settled. So that'd be exciting. You know, everybody keep in mind, time machine, time travel questions are fun, and time travel stories are great. But near as we can tell, you can't travel through time except to go this one way. And so the stories about second chances and going into the past and trying to change the past, it's a big science fiction thing. You'd go back and keep the Titanic from sinking or something. It doesn't seem to be possible. And it is closely related, I'll just tell you, in a real science way and in a intellectual or poetic way with I'm not kidding you guys, with the efficiency of cars. And you'll hear someday this mythic thing called the second law of thermodynamics, which is where heat spreads out. Heat always spreads out. A lake or a river doesn't freeze in the summertime. It just doesn't happen. The heat doesn't go off the surface of the pond into the bottom and it freezes. You can go ice skating in the summer. It never happens. So we are where we are. There's no going back. The only way we can go is forward. And so that is a great question, but I want you to think about, wait, we can't go into the future. We can imagine a better future and we're going to produce a better future, but you can't get there except what the Terminator, the character in those movies, said, the long road, where he waits for the time travelers. Anyway, I digress a little, but you guys.
Thanks for fielding.
The other thing that I think one of your old bosses pointed out, if you couldn't pick where you would be born on Earth, you didn't get to pick where you would be born, but you got to pick when. Somehow, if you could do that, this would be the time you'd want to be born. As much trouble as you might perceive there is in the world, as difficult as things might be for you sometimes, the world is actually better for more people than it's ever been in human history. And that is really something to think deeply about. Like, there's no better time to be alive than right now. And so the opportunities we have, the changes we're going to make, the improvements we're going to make to people's lives, just fill me with optimism and joy. So let's go, people. Let's change the world.
Yeah. I'd tack one more on. We had a late breaking question here, Bill. If you've got time for one more, which is.
I got time. I got to.
All right.
Come on. You're the White House. I'm here all night, people. Let's go.
Okay, we'll go through the afternoon. This is great. We've got Lynn from the Space Coast, Florida, asking, and we've got some, provocative hypotheticals here that lead us right back to critical in the moment answers. But if you had a chance to go to space, what experiment would you consider doing while you're up there?
Oh, well, I would, if I had a chance to go to space, and I've applied to be an astronaut 4 times, you guys, when I was younger. I think I'd want to do something with neutrinos. Yeah.
Can you tell us about neutrinos?
Oh, come on. Everybody knows neutrinos. No. So when there's all these particles that scientists, especially physicists, are crazy for. You've heard of protons and electrons and neutrons. Well, protons and neutrons are made of quarks. And somewhere in all there, when one of them changes to another, it gives off a neutrino. So a neutron has no charge, and a neutrino came from an Italian word for little no charge. Neutron, neutrino. And so there's something about neutrinos where when certain radioactive materials break down or change, give off radioactivity, they also give off a neutrino. And the crazy thing, neutrinos apparently are passing through each of us and the Earth by the billions all the time. And these particles just don't interact. They don't run into other stuff very easily. But somewhere in there is, and by in there, I mean in the subatomic, below microscopic world, somewhere in there is some energy being moved around that from what I've read, I suspect has to do with how neutrinos do their neutrino thing. You guys, when I was in school, everybody presumed the universe was slowing down. Big Bang, except there's no sound, it's in space. The universe was slowing down. But along about 2004, people discovered that the universe is accelerating. It's getting bigger, faster and faster. And people aren't exactly sure why that would be. But it has something to do with the source of gravity that we can't see that they call dark matter. And I just got to think that somewhere in the dark matter and the neutrinos, there's something that in 30 years, students today will all take for granted. As I said, when my grandparents were born, they didn't know anything about relativity. Now, relativity is how we set our clocks. And so 30 years from now, there might be something about dark matter and neutrinos that you all, the kids, students watching, will know much more about than we do right now. It's exciting. It's exciting.
That's great. Well, I think you might be close. You're certainly closer to your opportunity to go to space. It's becoming more common. So we're pulling that for you, that you get that opportunity. We get the opportunity to see you do your neutrino experiment in space.
Well, I don't know about that, but you guys keep in mind that talk about an exciting time. This is the most exciting time in space exploration since the Apollo era. The stuff that's going on in space right now, we all depend on space exploration for our weather reports, for our keeping an eye on what's going on in Europe, for communications, for financial transactions, for farming. We rely on space assets, as we call them, stuff, things, and ground systems that communicate with things flying around. The other thing, everybody, it is very reasonable that in the next 20 or 30 years, certainly less than 50 years, we will find evidence of life on another world. We might even find something alive on another world, some microbes on Mars, something alive on Europa, the moon of Jupiter, with twice as much ocean water as Earth, discovered by Margie, a woman, by the way. If we were to find evidence of life, let alone something alive out there, it would change everything. It would change the way everybody feels about being alive. This is such an exciting time. There's so much going on in space exploration. And by the way, the goal of the people running the commercial space industry right now is to make renewable rocket fuel, to use electricity from solar panels and wind turbines to take carbon right out of the air and make the carbon into rocket fuel. Rocket fuel and diesel fuel, like in diesel trucks and trains, and heating oil, that if you live in a house with an oil furnace, that's all kind of the same stuff. Kerosene, heating oil, rocket fuel, jet fuel are all sort of the same thing, with different stuff sprinkled in to change their freezing points. But if we could figure out how to do that economically, there's another thing going on called sustainable aviation fuel, SAF. People are working to take carbon out of the air and make jet fuel using renewable electricity. This is such an exciting time, you guys. It's such an exciting time.
Another priority of the administration and a great way to end. I would just note, if I could sum it up, Bill, what I heard you say and tell us is that we can do this. And what I would tell the children who have joined us today, that their parents are doing this right now, and they're going to continue to do this. We're going to pass the baton to you all as you take the federal service baton and other roles that affect the world and the climate, and you will help do this too. So thanks again for the inspiration, for the education, Bill, not only today, but every day of your job and your work. We look forward to seeing you in the future, and we really appreciate your time today.
Oh, thank you guys. And it's I can't see you, but I know you're out there. And it's so exciting. When I was at the World's Fair in 1964, there was no such thing. There was no Zoom call, just every day. This is so cool. All right, you guys, let's get out there and change the world. Thank you so much for including me.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. So I just want to note that our next event is in the summer, to the exact time TBD, but you can find more information again on our website at sustainability.gov. And we're inspired. So thank you. Thanks for joining us.